everybody, and welcome back to Keeping It Real with Tiff and Carl. I'm Carl Raven,
I'm Tip Salcido.
and we are in a place of, flux. You know, you feeling that, Tiff? Do you feel the flux?
I, I,
Can you feel the
it rhymes.
flux?
It rhymes with flux. It
Yeah.
sounds like flux.
You give no flux? Is that what it is?
I give a lot of. I'm giving too many flux right now. I think is what the problem is. I've got so many flux. I've got so many flux.
Keeping it real, real. Yeah.
Sometimes the L is silent. I don't know. But no, there's definitely a lot going on in the world for sure, and a lot of things that are important and terrifying and ground shaking, and I can go on and on and on. So definitely feeling it for sure.
Yeah.
Uncertainty and wonder.
Yeah, it definitely is a time of turmoil,
Yeah.
and which I guess is a synonym for flux, right? But
Mm.
I give no turmoil. But but yeah, no, I was, just in terms of, our world, our nation, but just even with the weather, you know, yesterday, well, yeah, yesterday was the first day I felt like I didn't have to wear a jacket,
Hmm.
and today I definitely felt like I'm not wearing a jacket tomorrow, right? Even though it was cold here in Bakersfield, I'm I'm joining from a remote access, parts unknown. Well, I've already given away Bakersfield,
Hmm.
and it was funny where I was sitting today was actually, the place where my counterpart or my partner in crime was sitting yesterday,
That's
right?
right.
So it was it was funny. I had to send her a little message because our connection for the county was like, oh yeah, Tiffany was here yesterday. I said, oh, she didn't tell me that.
Keep you
So
guessing. Always keep you guessing. Where am I at?
right, that's right. We're in the world is Ana San Diego, right?
That's right.
But yeah, so yeah, it was the weather's changing, right? And people's I don't know, people's attitudes, people's alert statuses, right? So I guess, if I'm gonna get with the times, I should ask you, Tiff, so what were five things you accomplished last week?
uh, I breathed. Let's see. No, last week, see, this is hard for me because I live my life 1 week at a time. And once the week is over, I'm on to the next one. But let's see, I crossed a US Mexico border. I finally had Chinese food in Mexicali.
Yeah, how
Uh,
was that?
it, eh, I'm gonna go with that.
Mhm.
I went to a birthday party with for a friend of ours who turned 50. And I was really happy to celebrate his birthday with him, but I had like a revelation, and we can talk about that more later. Um, And work wise, I taught a lot of great classes and connected with a lot of great people. So I accomplished all the things I was supposed to last week. And I washed my sheets and blankets in this house for so long. Um, I usually wash my sheets like once a week, but I haven't been in this house for so long. I was like, I can't remember the last time I've changed these sheets. And not that we've been sleeping in dirty sheets. It's just like we're home one day and then we're
Mhm.
gone again. So
Mhm.
um I was like, I'm just gonna wash them. We maybe slept in them 5 times, but I'm just like, I that's so I accomplished that. I got all the bedding washed and that made me happy. That's what I did last
Oh,
week. What did you do, Carl? What did you accomplish?
geez. So last week I um I weeded a third of my backyard, a third, just
Impressive.
because I ran out of Roundup. So um I did laundry. I taught a class um for a group that I love working with, and it was really cool because I felt like um the first class wasn't necessarily up to what it was that they needed. I kind of didn't. I got half information, and so I got better information. I'm actually kind of proud of myself. If I looked at my feedback forms and took it to heart and really spent some time editing the class the second time around to make sure that it met the needs of the group. And the feedback that I got was they want to sign up for some more classes about
Nice.
that. So I was like, wow, that's real cool. So I was really proud of myself, you know. And then I played tennis twice this weekend, which
Ooh.
means I've been walking gingerly for the last 3 days. Really starting to feel my age here. And how many is that? Is that three things?
Three things.
Um,
Weeds, class, tennis.
I did the dishes
Did the dishes, that counts?
every day,
Good.
and I finished Cobra Kai,
Okay.
the Karate Kid thing, so it's all done. And
Nice.
yeah, and I guess I'm okay with it being done.
Okay. I finished since can I add a sixth one because this is productive. I finished for the second time I finished Game of Thrones for the
Oh,
second
okay,
time.
for the second time.
Yeah, for the second
Okay.
time. Yeah.
And was it any better the second time than it was the first
I
time?
think it was incredibly better the second time because I knew the characters a bit more. So I like some of the nuances that you don't catch when you don't know like the characters as much when you're
Yeah,
learning the characters. When you watch it the second time around, like things have more context because you know who they are. And I think I don't know. I loved it. I loved it both times, but I think the second time around, I think I got a little bit more out of it. And what's really interesting is I didn't remember most of it. Like it felt
yeah.
like a lot of times I was watching it for the first time and I was like, oh yeah, that happened. That I remember that. Arya is still my favorite, by the way. Arya Stark is still my favorite of the whole
Yeah,
everybody. And
yeah, she's
Sansa,
my
she's pretty
favorite
bad
too.
too. Yeah, Sansa's
Yeah,
my close second.
yeah. Well, she grew on me. She grew on
Yeah,
me. Yeah,
same.
but because I was thinking, I was going to ask you, is there any character in the second time around that maybe you've gained appreciation for that you didn't have the first time?
Theon Greyjoy, for sure.
Okay.
Because I really like hated him the first time around because of how he betrayed them. And um, I'm a one that holds grudges, and so even with his character arc and how he came back, I still was holding against. We shouldn't have done him during the first time, right? So it's the least you could do. But then the second time around, I actually, again, you pick up some more of the nuances of the characters and him trying to be like the man of his house and all of that stuff, the complexity of his character. And so I absolutely, I think, loved him more the second time around and was rooting for him. And the other one that I don't know how I missed it the first time around, but the Hound. The Hound was like one of the best characters, and I really loved him as well. And again, maybe in the first time around, didn't really understand like his significance, but then when I watched it the second time, I was like, he's such a great character, and he's so like he protected Arya the whole he loved her like he loved Arya
Yeah,
the whole time like not as a weird romantic love but like a real protective and admiration and respect for her as a person and I loved it so
yeah,
yeah those are
yeah.
my two. I hate Cersei. I hated her the first time. I hate her more the second time. Cersei can kick rocks, but I wish I actually am sad that she died with Jamie. I wish spoiler alert. If you haven't watched it by now, whatever. But I actually was upset that she got to die with Jamie. I was hoping something worse for her, to be honest with you. And the fact
Hmm.
that she got to die with her love really disappointed me. I wanted her to suffer a little bit more.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
but boo, Cersei. I give no flux about Cersei. I can tell you that much right now. None, not a one. Love that show
yeah.
though.
No, Arya's my girl. You know they're going to come up with a new episode or a new series
Really?
for Arya where she's going west to Westeros, right? So
Yeah. I
yeah,
would watch that.
yeah. But I like Braun. Braun just he gives no fucks for sure,
Yeah.
and he's fun,
Yeah.
So I always enjoyed him.
Yeah. He's cool.
Yeah.
I don't like how serious he was at the end. I know like that was part of like he had to be, but I don't know. Not my
Yeah.
favorite. Not my favorite. But he's had
Yeah.
some cool moments. Some
He
very cool
did.
moments.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, and I've gosh, I've watched that thing so many times now. I feel like nothing surprises me. Things I will watch it again when it comes back and I'm like, oh yeah,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Rather than, oh, I didn't notice that. Oh yeah, I remember that. Okay. But yeah, I can't tell you how many times I've watched it. That and Sopranos
Love
and The
Sopranos
Wire
too.
and The Wire and yeah, so HBO just, does really good stuff. So
Speaking of
yeah.
good stuff on HBO, just real quick, I have to look up the name of it because I was just watching it before we came up here. They
Hmm.
have a documentary right now that's really freaking cool, and I'm learning a lot in watching it. It's called Eyes on the Prize 3, and it's
Hmm.
about the civil rights movement. And
Hmm.
it goes through the civil rights movement through different eras. And so this particular part is from 1977 to 2015. And so
Hmm.
I was learning a lot about like this sweat equity movement back in the Bronx back in the 70s, which was really fascinating. And then Max anti-Maxine Maxine Waters was on there talking about like some of the things she did in the early 80s and 90s in
Yeah.
Compton and Watts, which is really fascinating. Um, but really cool stuff. Really, really cool
Yeah.
stuff. I'm looking forward to watching the whole thing. I love documentaries and I love learning stuff that's not like what you would see on mainstream TV and hearing stories from people. So I'm going to be very immersed in that over the next week or so.
Right on. Right on. So I have a question for you, Tiff.
Ooh, yeah.
Well, I guess it's for both of us. So our question of the episode. You're at a cafe. What type of drink do you order?
Ooh, a cafe. Well, so it depends. What time of day is it? See, for me, okay, so if it's the morning, I'm ordering coffee. If it's the afternoon, I'm probably going to get a Dr. Pepper. And if it's the evening, it's going to be water. That's my I'm a drink by the uh by the time of day type of person. So
Water, is there a reason for water at night?
just because I don't drink caffeine after usually after
Mm,
lunchtime or I
okay.
don't sleep. I
Okay.
try to drink water. With all of those, by the way, I also drink water. So if I order a cup of coffee, I usually get water too. That's
Yeah.
kind of like my rule of thumb for every glass of drink, every cup of coffee that I have. A glass of coffee didn't sound right, but every cup of coffee that I drink, I usually drink water. And same thing with if I drink soda, I try to drink water right after that too, but it's just water at night. And depending on what kind of cafe it is, if they have alcoholic beverages, then it might be a cocktail.
Okay.
But cafes don't usually serve cocktails per se.
So what do you put in your coffee?
I can do just milk or half and half. Sometimes depends on it just depends. So like my coffee drink at home is 4 shots of espresso with some steamed milk. That's milk and half. We do a combo. We're very particular here at the Salcedo household. We have like a whole barista situation going on. But here we have the flavored syrups, and so I always do 1 pump of syrup, whether it be vanilla, caramel, whatever I have open at the time. But 1 pump of syrup, and then again just the 4 shots in my steamed milk, and half combo. But if I'm out like on the streets, and they don't have like the foo coffee stuff, then I usually just regular coffee with half and half and maybe a little bit of sugar. But sometimes I don't even do the sugar. I just like the coffee and milk. I don't do black coffee. It's too acidic for me. Um, I do like a little bit of cream in it just to kind of cut the acidity just a bit, make it a little bit silkier. Yeah. What about you? What's your cafe drink?
Black. Black.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I just drink it black. Because I'm a diabetic, so
Yeah.
um I drink coffee for the effect and I but what I've learned is there's that good coffee has a good taste. Right?
Yeah, no, it does.
So I'm interested in the taste of black coffee, right? So the better the black coffee, the happier I am. But I drink coffee black. And because if I add any sugar to it, it has the opposite effect.
Hmm, interesting.
It actually crash, right? So that's so yeah, so I drink coffee. I have a window to about 5 p.m.
Yeah,
I'll drink coffee. And then if I drink after that, then I'll have a hard time sleeping.
yeah,
And also if I band practice, coffee affects my vocal cords.
gotcha.
You can tell when I've had a lot of coffee because my voice is higher, right?
Hmm.
So it's I just got to be careful with that. But then I guess in the afternoon it would be a Diet Coke,
Hmm.
and at night probably a if I'm drinking a well, my favorite easy cocktail is just a Jameson and Diet Coke,
That's a good one.
or just a Jameson neat.
Nice.
Yeah, so
You like whiskey then?
I'm a whiskey I'm a whiskey person, yes.
Okay. I'm gonna put you on something right now. Okay.
Uh-oh.
I'm gonna put you on something. If you like whiskey and you like it with Coke or Diet Coke, might I suggest something called Shanky's Whip? Okay. Shanky's Whip. It's an Irish whiskey with an addition of some black liqueur that they add to it. I don't know what it's made out of. It might be twinkle star dust. It could be cockroach feces. I'm not sure, but it is the smoothest. It tastes like an iced coffee, like a really nice caramelized, um, strong, like coffee drink. It's not super sweet. It's not syrupy sweet. So I can't be like it's whiskey. I mean, you can taste that it's whiskey, but it has such a nice, like caramely coffee type notes to it that you can just
Mhm.
sip it on ice. It's chef's kiss, Shanky's Whip. It's like my jam right now.
And is this something that a lot of people know how to make?
It's an alcohol. It's a bottle of alcohol. It's just
Oh,
that's a
oh,
brand.
oh, okay. Oh, okay. Shanky's Whip is a brand. Okay, cool.
So
Yeah.
we buy alcohol a lot. We're not alcoholics. I say that a lot for someone who I'm not an alcoholic. I might have a problem. No. Um we I like to have like liquor on hand in case I want to make a drink, right? Sometimes at home I want a beverage. And so we have a pretty good collection and most of it sits unused like most of the year. But I will like I pay attention when we go to like bars or like restaurants where they have like an extensive like bunch of different bottles of liquor. I kind of like I'm curious. So I'll be like, what is that? What do you make with that one? And I've never seen that before. What do you make with that one? So we were actually in Reading at the CR Gibbs restaurant. We almost
Mhm.
always sit at the bar because I hate to wait for tables. I that's by the way one of my pet peeves. I hate waiting for a table. I'll sit at the bar anytime. So I saw the little bottle and I was like, that looks interesting. So I asked the bartender, like, what is that? And she's like, oh, I don't even know. So she says, oh, it says it's some kind of Irish whiskey. Do you want to try it? And I'm like, yeah. And it was so good. So then I Googled it because I'd never seen it before or heard of it. So I looked it up and they had it at Bevmo in Reading. And so I went and got them. And when I bought the first bottle, and this was probably in December, I think I paid $23 for it. And then I gave my bottle away because we had a friend try it and he liked it. So we just gave him the bottle. I went to go get another bottle and it was up to $30. So
Ah, wow.
now it's going to
Yeah.
be like you can sniff it, but you can't taste it because that one I'm going to keep for a long time. But
Wow.
it's a nice little whiskey. And again, um, you're not doing shooters of it. It's a good little sipper. But I
Yeah.
really like it. And I'm not a huge whiskey person. I like it from
Yeah.
time to time, but that one was really good.
Yeah, I dig a good whiskey. I'll do an Irish Mule
Hmm.
sometimes too if I want to. But yeah, this portion of Keeping It Real with Tiff and Carl is brought to you by Shanky's Whip.
Yes, not to be confused with Skanky's Whip, which is a whole different thing.
Right.
And we're not keeping it that real. Not here, not today.
So when you're thinking of whips, think of Shanky. Shanky is not janky.
It's not. It's pretty good. But yeah,
So Tiff,
that's good stuff. Yeah.
We have a guest today.
No, I'm so excited.
Our first guest. I'm excited too. And I bet you our listeners are excited because they're actually going to hear somebody else's voice talk about the stuff that we talk about. So, it's our friend Kelly Bazzani. Or let me preface that by saying it is Tiffany's friend who I
Thank
am
you.
allowed to be friendly with
Yes, in
and
moderation.
in moderation,
Hmm.
right? And with a moderator who
Hmm.
happens to be Tiffany Salcido. So, but we talked to her about resilience, and she's an expert at resilience, and she's a professional coach. And you're going to hear her bio as we go into it. So it was a great conversation. I really enjoyed it, and I look forward to interacting with her more often, with your permission, of course. So
Yes, yes, I will allow it in moderation. But yeah, I was really excited because, Carl and I have conversations about like topics and, with all of the stuff happening in the world right now, resiliency was something that we thought was important to discuss because it's hard out here on these streets. And, if we can't change reality, like how do we change the way that we interact with it? And so resiliency was really the skill set we focused on. And so when we decided that, I'm like, I know just the person. Because Kelly, that is her life's work is all around resiliency. And she's the most resilient person I've ever met. Her life story is fascinating.
it's
So,
pretty amazing. Yeah.
yep. And so I'm really excited to share that with all of you. And yes, Carl, I'll share it with you too. You can have a little bit of Kelly uh, again in moderation. So,
Kelly. So, yeah, you brought me back to Married with Children. Okay. So thank you, Jen. All right. And so I hope you enjoy our conversation with Kelly, and um, we will see you next week.
yes,
Never stop exploring.
right.
All right, we are recording, so everything that we say from here on out is there for posterity. It may not make it to the podcast, but it's admissible in court. So I'm just kidding. See, you didn't get my joke. That's all right. I'm used to people not laughing at my shit. That's all right. All right, here we go. Ready? And we're gonna start in three, two. Hey, everybody, welcome back to Keeping It Real with Tiff and Carl. I'm Carl Rabin.
I'm Tiffany Salcedo. And we
And
got
we
Kelly today. Sorry, I got too excited.
Okay, we have a special guest here today, as Tiffany said. And then with us is Miss Kelly Bazzani. You want to say hi, Kelly?
Hi, Kelly.
I'm sorry. Every time I hear this is how old I am. Every time I hear the word the name Kelly, I think of Married with Children. Kelly, 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 Kelly. You guys don't remember that, do you?
I
It's all
do.
right.
We're
Do you?
showing
No, I
our
have
Okay,
no
age,
idea.
Carl.
cool. All right. Well, Kelly Bazzani has a master's in psychology and is a certified master life coach and addiction and recovery expert, specializing and dedicated to destigmatizing mental health and promoting emotional wellness. As CEO of Maximum Resilience Incorporated, Kelly crafts legacies of resilience, transforming despair into stories of success. Her methods are deeply emotional and impactful, blending her expertise in mental health and her background as a critical care nurse to offer a holistic approach to recovery, emerging as a beacon of influence from the shadow of addiction and the confines of a maximum security jail. Kelly has gained international recognition as an acclaimed author and inspirational speaker. Kelly shares her wisdom worldwide, inspiring change and fostering healing by her unique insight into the human psyche. It is not about just imparting knowledge, it is about igniting transformation. Dedicated to mentoring and transforming lives, Kelly's work is a testament to her commitment to mental health advocacy and resilience, empowering others to find their inner strength and achieve lasting and inner freedom. Kelly was ranked as one of the top 10 resilience coaches by the Coach Foundation and was recently awarded Top Instructor and Mental Health Advocate of the Year by the International Association of Top Professionals. Kelly is a senior level contributor for Brains Magazine, host of the podcast Maximum Resilience, and has been awarded Best Life Coach by Style Magazine for the past 4 years. Kelly turns her trials into triumphs, pain into purpose, and shadows into stories that heal. Ladies and gentlemen, Miss Kelly Bazzani. And thank you for joining us, Kelly. It's been a pleasure. And thank you so much. And we will talk to you soon. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. That's quite a bio. I hate when people read my bios, Kelly. I start melting in my seat no matter where I am. And I walk up and I say, well, what else am I supposed to do with that? Right.
Yeah, I'm all
Mhm.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm all
If you have a
impressed. I'm
prop
all
in front of you.
starstruck. I saw her in the ball gown at the awards.
I'm tempted,
fangirl, fangirl.
I'm
Yes.
tempted to start popping a zit or something on my forehead while people, just say, I'm not
I
any.
know, I'm all, oh, where else do I look? Are they talking about me? Thank you, Carl. Yes. Oh man. I know, and then they move on, and we'll get back to her in a minute. And then you're just sitting there like, oh.
Yeah.
Tiffany helped me with the get into my ball gown for that. Remember, that was the first time we met, Tiff.
It was. And I was so excited about her. She was all worried about her ball gown. I'm like, you get to wear a ball gown? And then I wanted to like put tiaras on and be fancy with her.
I
And so
know.
we hadn't met like in real life yet. We were going to do a training together. And I was like, we should wear our ball gowns to training. And I'm actually kind of glad you didn't because I would have felt really bad because I showed up in tennis shoes and and the ball gown would have been a little awkward a little bit for you.
After all that, you're like, we should wear ball gowns. Why don't we normalize wearing ball gowns to Starbucks and here? And I'm like, okay, I like you. And then I showed up to training and I'm all decked out and you're all, I just wanted to be comfortable. And I'm like, wait, you're supposed to be my ball gown.
I know that get used to being disappointed by me, Kelly. It's kind of my MO. I set high expectations and then I fizzle out real fast. Real fast. All right, I'm okay with it. I'm all right with it.
You helped me over the hump, though. You got me in that ball gown. That was a struggle. That struggle was real. Whew.
And you were gorgeous, and she was so beautiful. And I tell you, I was so awestruck, so beautiful, so
Ooh,
gorgeous, so
thank you.
beautiful.
Well, so give us some context. Where did you guys meet? Where did the ball gown come from?
So I met Tiff on when we were doing a training. We were going to go do one in a county far, far away, as Tiffany taught me.
Far away, yep.
And so we met online to do that. But I actually got it through the International Association through Top Professionals. And so I got to go to Nashville, Tennessee to do that. So I flew out there in December. And some people dream of walking down an aisle in a white dress and getting married. And that was never my thing. I was always, when I got clean and sober, I was like, I want to walk down a red carpet and get an award for mental health in a ball gown. And so it finally happened. And then I was like, oh, wait, I don't want to do that. And so I was struggling. I was telling Tiffany, because I was like, I come from the world of addiction. And 10 years ago, I was eating, out of a garbage can and struggling and homeless. And so I felt like I don't want to wear a ball gown because I think that for people in addiction, doesn't really give them hope. Like, okay, that's great, but how am I ever going to get there? And then Tiffany was telling me, well, hey, did you ever think about it from the perspective of that might give people hope though, And so she kind of flipped that narrative and I was like, okay, yeah, we can be besties. And so from there we met and we trained and we clicked and so now every time I'm in Reading or she's in Shasta, we're like, hey, are you in town? Are you in town? Are you in town? And so
We missed each other last time by literally
yes.
like 50 minutes, like by
Yeah.
50 minutes. And
Not
it was
even.
really a bummer. It was a bummer, but it wasn't our time. It's okay. We'll find each other again in
Yeah.
this world. I don't know if the world's ready for us though, Carl. Like you already know, I'm super high energy and Kelly like spins like does laps around me. And I'm just like,
I'm totally taking it all in and absorbing it right now. So I mean, yeah. Yeah, and
we're on our best behavior.
I saw on your LinkedIn, Kelly, that you were in San Francisco this week. And so, we were just talking about, training in San Francisco because the training space that we're all trainers for UC Davis, everybody. So it's one of the venues that we train for, and that's kind of, that's the one connection we have for sure, other than the fact that we all like to wear ball gowns. Um, but just yeah, so where the training space is in San Francisco County is right across the street from where my dad's first job was, because it used to be a Sears store, that big ass building across the street.
Oh, yes, yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah, yeah. So and I grew up literally like 3 blocks away. So that's it's always, so when I saw you in front of that janky space with the janky projector, I was feeling at home, and hopefully you got speakers to, if you had any videos going on. Anyways, but I love San Francisco, those are my people. Rosario is amazing. Love her. Can't wait to see her next month. But yeah, so you just kind of I was like, oh, I get to talk to her on Friday. I'm gonna talk to her about how she liked the space in San Francisco. Oh,
Yes, I'm from the Bay Area too, Carl, so maybe that's
right
why
on.
I feel yes. And so I went and it was I love it because the last three trainings I've done is when we've gotten the warnings from UC Davis about the weather, and so the rent-a-car got upgraded when I went to Reading last time because on the five, everything was flooded, and so I'm gripping onto the steering wheel for dear life and the five, the trucks. And so for San Francisco, UC Davis sent out the warning that said areas being affected, and it just said California. And so I was a little
Yeah.
late picking up the rent-a-car, and so they gave me a Mitsubishi Mirage. And so it was like one of those clown cars, So I'm driving down to San Francisco, and Rosario's like, come up to the gate, and then the little security card will be there. And I pull up, I'm like, I can't see anything in the Mitsubishi Mirage, So I
Yeah.
get into the training, and yeah, the projector's there, but then I go to play the first video and like no sound. So
No
then we have to
sound.
take a little break. So then they hook up the speakers.
Hmm.
And then by the end, I went to get something from the side, and all of a sudden we hear like, and the flooding was coming in the building, and the whole carpet on the whole left in that room was just
Oh
like,
man.
and so
Because
we're
they
like,
leave the door ajar,
they
otherwise,
do
yeah, yeah,
the
yeah,
whole
because you can't get in
training.
otherwise. Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
so, as trainers, so you guys can have a little inside, we're like, okay, flexibility, let's pivot, let's move
yeah.
everybody to this side of the room, so then we're all on like this side of the room, So I take off my heels, and Tiffany taught me this trick. I brought a pair of Nikes. So I'm like in my Nikes with my suit. I don't know if you saw my picture. I'm like, in this
Yeah,
like
yeah,
two-piece suit
yeah.
with my Nikes on, like, So, so I told him I'm coming back. I go back next week on the 25th to that same room. And Rosario's in her little beanie with like the ears. And I'm like, can I get
Yeah.
that beanie? It's a little cold up here, So I put on her beanie for a little bit because you just do anything you can to like just keep it going. But
Yeah.
I always feel at home, when I go to the city because it's home, I mean, so I love going there. I've been there. I just went there, and then I was in Merced for 3 days. And then I love going up to Shasta. We just did Amador County yesterday. Like Tiff knows, we're doing this mandated domestic violence training
Hmm.
that's statewide. So that's getting all over the place and then diffusing the hostile situations. And then I'm doing a lot of substance use disorder right now too for our kids because that's just becoming a huge pandemic. So I'm developing a lot of trainings for that. So they're keeping me busy for sure. I forget sometimes what I'm doing. I have to look and be like, oh, switch, today's substance use. Oh, tomorrow's diffusing. Oh, and I have to kind of I'm afraid one day I'm going to get on and be like, oh, today we're doing this. They're like, nope, actually it's this training, I'm going to get embarrassed.
That's
That does happen. I
that's
did that like a few
that's
weeks ago, but I started like put people in there. Well, remember last time we talked about this and remember blah blah blah, and then I came back and I'm like, oh shit, this is not the right time.
Yeah,
yeah.
I said, oops, my bad, and then we just went on.
you just go because you just
Hmm.
get so inundated with stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
yesterday we were doing online domestic violence and I had my substance use pulled up and then my partner's like, we're doing domestic violence. And I'm like, oh shoot, let me get that PowerPoint, because you're just
Yeah,
Yeah.
rocking and
Yeah.
rolling.
I've
that's
been,
why
I've
I
been,
live 1 week at a time. I say I live 1 week at a time. I'm like, what do I have this week, and then next week is next week's problem. That's how I
Yeah,
live.
yeah,
yeah.
that's, I've been doing it this for 18 years, and that
Oh,
is the most
Carl.
consistent recurring nightmare is that I wake up in the wrong county with the wrong training. So just so you know,
Yeah,
you
it is
That's
crazy.
terrifying.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
that is
it's what we live for. We're the Fast and Furious. We live one training at a time, right? So you're making
right.
it happen.
It
You know,
is.
Right.
yeah. So
That's
just with the bio and everything, and sharing your stories, it's and just you being who you are. Tell us how you got to this space where you are now, and in where you are in your practice and in your profession and in your life.
Yeah. I never thought I would. I mean, this is kind of, I'd never thought I'd be where I was today, and I'm so grateful I am. Like I was telling Tiff, I don't regret one moment of my life. because if one, and this is part of the resilience we'll talk about, if 1 second would be different, I wouldn't be on this podcast talking to you guys. But I started actually as a critical care nurse. And that's what I went to school for. I wanted to be a nurse all my life. I actually wanted to be a professional WNBA basketball player. That was my dream. I played my 3 sports in high school. Um, and that's really what I wanted to do. And then in high school, I also was a suppressed alcoholic. I was drinking full time in high school, just sneaking that vodka, sneaking gin, sneaking whatever I could into those Snapple water bottles. I went to a Catholic all girls school. Everyone's like, oh, Catholic schools, they're so, and it's like, no, we were so much worse than public school girls, because we were, I went to an all girls school. We didn't have we were trying to get in trouble any way we could. So I was doing that, and I got a full scholarship to Arizona State for basketball. And so that's really what I wanted to pursue. I blew out my knee against USC my freshman year. So I was redshirting, went full time into nursing school. And so that's what I graduated with. I started working at Mayo Clinic in Arizona. So I was a critical care nurse in neuro ICU. I loved it. I am one of those overachievers, perfectionist 4.0, never felt good enough from a very young age, never felt good enough. I'd be outside shooting baskets. I'd make 10 in a row. My mom'd be like, honey, come in. I'm like, no, I need to make 20, just always seeking approval from anybody other than myself. So I didn't know that until I started doing this work a little bit more. And so also with the nursing, I was just suppressing with alcohol, alcohol, alcohol. And so I needed to move home with my parents in Arizona when I was working at Mayo Clinic. I decided to move back out to the Bay Area in Burlingame and to work at the hospital my grandma worked at. And so I think it was in 2002, I was nursing and I broke my back lifting a patient. And so the neuro doctor that I worked with was operating on me, and he had brain cancer, and he didn't know he had brain cancer. And so he severed a artery in my back when he was operating on me. And I woke up from that surgery and I was paralyzed from the waist down. And so I woke up from surgery from just a normal, herniated disc surgery, and I was paralyzed at 28 years old. And so at that point, as you guys can imagine, like I was known as Nurse Kelly. That was my identity. I was making good money. I had my own apartment. I had my independence, and all of that was taken. And so nobody wanted to operate on me. They're like, she's 28, she's paralyzed. No, I don't want to touch her. So I sat in a wheelchair on my parents' front porch for 2 years. And I think that's when I started taking all of those, everything, right? Opiates, benzodiazepines. And I realize it now. I didn't realize it at the time. I was taking it more for the emotional pain than I was for the physical pain. So they found me this doctor in San Francisco. He was called the Doctor of Last Resort. That was literally his name. He had operated on Joe Montana from the 49ers, and he was Dr. Kenneth Light. I will forever be grateful to him. And he's like, we can do these experimental surgeries. They might work, they might not. And my parents were like, no. And I was like, yeah, what am I going to do? Sit on my parents' front porch my whole life, So they did. I had him at St. Francis Hospital in San Francisco. And it was a 2-day surgery. They went through my back and took out my vertebrae, went through my stomach and, clipped in vertebrae. They call me the bionic woman. I walked the next morning. And so I did rehab. I moved up to Santa Rosa, and I was jogging about a year later, and I slipped on the curb and my whole left side went paralyzed because the disc replacement had, severed in there. And so they went in and they rebuilt my spine and fused it together and took bone from my hip. It was just this whole big process. So long story short, too late. Over the course of 8 spinal surgeries and 8 years of just heavy addiction, from fentanyl patches to Oxycontins to everything, I just developed a severe opiate addiction and made very poor choices in my addiction. Very poor choices. Got behind the wheel of a car, racked up multiple DUIs, just existing. Bills were on the table. And everything was happening to me, not for me, but to me. And pretty soon my family started setting boundaries. My friends started distancing. And I just fell deeper into that addiction. And so my last rehab was in 2014. Definitely not my first, but definitely my last. And at that point, I was unemployable. I had surrendered my nursing license. I was facing prison. I didn't have a penny to my name. And my sponsor was sitting with me, and I said, "How are you gonna fix me?" And she's like, "I'm not, but I'll sit with you on this grass and we'll figure out how to get you out of this hole." So she just started me taking through the recovery steps, like one at a time, and I didn't know what I was going to do with my life. And I think the difference, Carl and Tiff, was like in my other rehabs, I had already had, a couple years sober. So I was sitting in AA meetings and I was spitting out the verses of AA, but I was high, and so I wasn't getting honest with myself about all those underlying issues. And so in this last rehab, I started getting honest about, my eating disorder and my perfectionism and not feeling good enough and all those underlying issues that, because alcohol and everything is like, the symptom of what was really underneath. So I started getting really honest about everything underneath there. And so I walked up to the community college and I was shaking, I was detoxing, and I humbled myself. All those young kids had like laptops. I had the free backpack from the community college and the Bic pencil. And I sat in the back and I started taking psychology classes. I wanted to be a drug and alcohol counselor and just started doing that while I waited for my prison sentence. And I remember my counselor was like, "You have a bachelor's degree. Why don't you get a master's?" I'm like, "Oh no, I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough." And then I got my sentence, and my lawyer made it so that the two counties didn't find out about each other. So my third DUI counted in both counties instead of my fourth going to prison. So I went to jail in one county, got out, then I served my sentence in maximum security jail. And that was where I had my spiritual awakening, because my cellmate was in there for first degree murder. And I was judging her. And I'm like, I'm only in here for DUIs. She's in here for murder. What am I doing in here? And my higher power source, whatever you guys, want to refer to it to, was like, if you would have hit a child or you would have hit a family, you'd be in here doing the same time. So what makes you think you're any better, And so at that point, I had a year clean. And I called my sponsor because everybody in maximum security jail was in there for mental illness or for addiction. And so we were in our cells for 23 hours a day and out for one. And I started taking the women on the yard through recovery steps when we were out in that yard for an hour. And I just was like, I'm going to dedicate the rest of my life doing this work. And I have. And so I got out. I got into a master's program to be a marriage family therapist. I had my ankle monitor on in my master's program. So it's all humbling, and I'd go up to do my PowerPoint. My friends would be like, "Hey, your ankle monitor." I'd be like, "Oh," so I'd flip my skirt over my ankle monitor. I'd be charging my ankle monitor in the back of the classroom, And so I think we'll talk about this when we get to resilience. I just was consistent with that one goal. It was like, no matter what happens, no matter what life throws at me, just finish school, just finish school, just finish school. And so I did. And I had a lot of roadblocks throughout that, They want you to be a productive member of society, but they make it really difficult to do that. And so I just kept doing that. I had an Intoxilock in my car. I wasn't even in it for alcohol. I could have taken 5 million pills and blown into that Intoxilock, but it's, I had to pay for that. I had to pay for my fees. I had to pay for that. So I just kept going with school. I graduated, got my marriage family therapist, professional clinical counselor. And I decided I didn't like being in that box of therapy, like it was like people still blaming their parents for what happened to them and they're, when they're 80 years old. And I'm like, okay, this isn't. So I started taking self-mastery classes down in Napa. And I was like, this will just be a review. And I just got my ass handed to me. It was like me and myself for like 10 days, and I'm like, oh God, I'm so unhealed. I'm so unhealed. So I just started my own healing journey, and then I opened my own coaching business, and I had like $800 to my name. And I told my parents, I'm like, I'm going to be a speaker and I'm going to write a book. And my parents were like, that's good, honey. Like she's crazy. And the people that think that, people are crazy enough to do it. And so I just started, I took all of my clients from MFT internship and took them all into my coaching business. And I'm like, I don't know where I'm going or where I'm going to see you, and I got my friends like her back of her daycare center, and I had like beanbag chairs, and I just started my coaching. I got a coaching license and I just started doing it, and here we are. And so I think the most important part was I was just honest and transparent and authentic. I just started sharing my story online. I'm like, I got my Intoxilock out today. I got my ankle monitor off today. And people just really liked that because there's so much shame and stigma around addiction. And so then people were like, hey, Dr. Pat from the Transformation Network's like, do you want to do a podcast about your story? I was like, yeah. You want to write a book with Les Brown, about it? Yeah. Do you want to start doing this? Yeah. And so then I just started building my career. My whole career has been built around my truth, So I've taken all my pain and all my shame and all my stuff and turned it into my greatest unique gift to the world because I had no values. I had no integrity. I had no authenticity in my addiction. And so I don't know how to be any other way now in my sobriety. And that's how I've built my emotional resilience. So that was
And
a
that's
long
like
answer to your question.
yeah. But can I just say, Kelly, like that was like my favorite thing about you because I think we talked about this when we first met, which is really funny because Kelly and I we literally met in the morning and then we were like connected from that moment. We Bluetooth connected in that moment, like, and I appreciated your authenticity and I love the fact that you are just who you are, and that's it. And again, I just appreciate that so much, and that's why I think I respect and love you so much because I as a person really value being authentic. I don't want to be anybody but who I am. Love it or hate it.
Yep.
Love it or hate it. That's up to you. But I'm not gonna fake the funk for anybody. And you were just 100% Kelly. And I loved it. I loved it.
Yeah, there's
So
no hidden agenda.
yeah.
Like you said, you either love it or hate it, and I'm just very honest with people, even in the corporate, I'm not a corporate, I'll never do the corporate, I'll never do the political, I'll never do, it's like I don't know how to be any other way. I just because the secrets and the lying almost killed me in my addiction. And so
Mhm.
I don't know how to be any other way. I live and die by my values. And so I've learned it, and I'm still learning it. And that's part of resilience, the lifelong learning, is just being so self-aware of my relapse will happen way before I use that drug. It's my behaviors. And so I
Mhm.
noticed that right away, you know.
But I think that's what like connects with people and as speakers, all of us are public speakers. I think the value that we bring is that we can be ourselves and we can be vulnerable and we can be authentic and we can say, here, let me share with you the 100 times I've gotten it wrong. Or do you guys, like, I'm always telling stories like, you want to hear when I got this the completely opposite way? Or, like, here's how you should do it. But can I tell you how I learned it? Like, let me tell you my biggest failures. And so like my whole personality is being a hot mess inside a dumpster fire. That's who I am, but it resonates with people because you can be successful and not be perfect. You can have a lot of acumens and not be without fail, without mistakes, without having perfection. You don't have to be perfect because nobody is.
No.
Nobody is.
And when
And
you
that's how you
agree,
get wise.
your failure, my successes come from my failures,
That's the same.
all my
Same.
failures. And when you and tell me if you guys agree as trainers, I say to my when I train, I'm like, I've taken those trainings where it's like death by PowerPoint,
Right.
and you have those people that train you that are like the scholarly. You can tell that like yes, they wrote the training and yes, they're like and this and this and this, but I'm like I am dying in this training, like I'm dying. And so when I do my trainings, I'm like, check it out. Like I'm going to do this training for you on resilience, but like I'm not going to tell you about all my credentials because I know you guys don't give a shit. I am, however, going to tell you why I'm qualified to do this through my lived experience. And I know you guys probably don't even feel like being resilient right now because you're tired and you're overwhelmed and you're this. So I'm going to be real. I want you to feel like I'm talking with you and not at you. So if you disagree with anything I'm saying, talk to me about, and so my evaluations are always like, man, think that was refreshing, like for her to just be honest with us and not be up there like, I have a master's degree in psychology. Nobody cares. They want to know how can you help me? with what I'm going through right now. You know, nobody cares about your role or what you've done, or you know what I mean? Because I know plenty of people with master's degrees or PhDs that are just, right? So
Don't
I,
talk about Carl like he's not here. No,
no,
joking. Just joking, Carl.
but you know
What
what I
what
mean,
what was
Carl?
my name? My name brought up? I'm just kidding.
But you know what I mean, Carl?
Yeah,
Like, I
yeah.
love people that are just authentic, like you said, that are like, listen, through my lived experience, here's what I did wrong. And here are some tips and tools that are going to help you moving forward to be healthier. You know, like, I don't want to give you like, I'm not going to blow smoke up your ass when you're understaffed, have 400 cases a day, and just be like, here, follow this PowerPoint. You know, like,
Same.
Yeah. No, I hear you. And you know, I got to tell you, I was one of those people when I started, right? When I started with UC Davis, I was a case manager. I was a supervisor and taught workshops for a county, right? And I did not expect to be a social worker. I thought I was going to be a high school history teacher. And I went back to my old Catholic boys high school in San Francisco and realized I don't want to teach kids, right? So, you
yes.
know, what to do. So anyway, so I kind of fell into the county work, and I caught on with Davis because I had worked with kids at an Air Force base and with the Boys and Girls Club, and I'd worked with their parents, and I saw UC Davis instructors, and I said I want to do that. But then I jumped in, and I remember I was given a supervisor. I had to fill in for a supervisor class in Alameda County, and I had a year's experience as a supervisor, and all these people were there for 20 years, and I felt inadequate. And so, I just remember that, I felt like I needed to pile on all my knowledge and tell people everything that I knew, and that was going to get them to say, okay, well, he is worthy of this. And it just, the more that I've got comfortable with who I am and in this profession, what I do, and the more I stop listening to other people say you need to talk about what you know in your spiel and all that bullshit, it really, I've actually had less slides. I've had more activities where people talk to each other because, for me, the secret sauce, I tell people all the time, I could talk about this stuff all day. I know this topic back and forth, but really how this applies to what you do and who you do it with and who you do it for is really the special sauce. So less of me and more of you is a good thing. I'll give you a
Yeah.
perfect example. Yesterday, I was teaching a class for the County Health Executives Advisory Council. And so it was a group of public health nurses that were running programs, right, through in their counties. And there was all these, there's like 25 different people in there from like 20 different counties. And I had done this before in the summer, and I'm not a public health nurse, but I thought, I know about evaluation and assessment. That's what it was about, right? I did my dissertation on this and everything like that. So I put this information on this first time I've taught this, put all this information on how to do an assessment, how to do an evaluation, and how to do an ROI full study and all this stuff. And the feedback that it doesn't really apply to me as a public health nurse. And and some of those people were handing out flyers in a job fair, right, or at a local fair, right, just information health fair. And so I had another opportunity, and the feedback I got from the person who planned it for me was, well, it wasn't, there was too much leadership stuff, but that's okay. It wasn't your fault. That's not what we were told. So, I took that feedback and I took it to heart, and I realized, what is it that I want to do? What is it that my goal for the end of this is for them to be able to walk away with an idea of, okay, I feel comfortable doing this stuff because, if you're not in school, if you haven't done this stuff and spent the time drilling it, then you're not going to understand the fundamentals, but you do understand the fundamentals of getting information out to the public. And
Yes.
so, how do we stay real with that? So, I went through my slides and I deleted like a third of them. And I added a couple more activities and really just broke it down to the basics. Okay, what is it that you do? What is it that you're studying? And what do you want to find out? And so that's
Yeah.
what the conversation was about. And I haven't got the feedback yet, but people were so engaged. They were exchanging connections and emails and all that stuff by the end of the class. I felt so much better because it wasn't about what I know. 'Cause what do I know about being a public health nurse? Other than I'd send referrals to them if a client was having an issue. right? That's as much as I knew. I used to have that feeling too when it came to like child welfare. I wasn't a child welfare social worker.
Yes.
What do I know about that stuff? It's not
Yes.
about what I know, it's about the information that I can provide that helps connect these people to be able to talk about what they know.
They
And
know.
and it's because it ain't about us. I mean, you're a coach just as much as us, and that's something that really, really was drilled into me in coaching school, right? It ain't
Yes.
about you. It's not about you. And
Right.
the further I've gotten, the more I've recognized, less of me, more of you is important. But it's that feeling of, do I match up? Am I worthy? Am I feeling that, what I'm doing for this person is of value? And that's such a huge thing. I mean, Kelly and Tiffany and I, we talk about this all the time. We're more accountable to other people than we are to ourselves, which is
Yes.
something, which is not a good thing. And it's something that I battle on a regular basis. But I'm so worried about my impact on you that I feel like I need to justify my impact on you. I justify you by being there. That's justified. Now,
I
what can I
agree.
do to help you, and how can you
Yeah.
build that? But that took a while. It took a while. I mean,
It does.
we're in process, right? We're human beings. That's part of being resilient, right? That's part of feeling like you are yourself and knowing yourself and feeling confident about who you are, and that who you are is worthy enough, right?
Well, I have so much to say on that. I agree with so much on that because that imposter syndrome is so real, right?
Absolutely.
It's so real, especially when you're starting. And I remember I used to watch my master coach in Napa. That was, she's probably about 80 by now, but she was flipping amazing, right? And someone would come up to be coached by her, and she'd kind of look down at the floor while they were talking, and they'd be blah, 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 and she would just listen, and then she would just nail it, right? She would just boom. And I'm like, how does she do that? Right? This was like 10 years ago. And I went up to her and I was like, Martha, how do you do that? And she's like, I can't teach that to you. And I'm like, but you need to. Like, I need to be a coach. I just had that sense of urgency, but I was making it about me, and she's like, you need to come back and just coach with me, like you just need to observe. And I'm like, no, I want you to give me like the pamphlet, coaching 101, but I would go back and I would just watch her. And she's like, it just takes practice, just takes practice. And now I'm not where she's at, but now I can listen to people. And coaching is not about giving them the answers. It's about empowering them to find those answers, right? And so same with you, Carl. I just got this training that was like substance abuse for licensed program analysts. And I'm like, oh, right. I'm like, it made me like kind of anxious and nauseated because I'm like, I don't know anything about licensed program analysts, right? But my ego's like, I'll do this, right? And so then as I'm trying to do it, I'm like, so I ended up humbling myself and reaching out to their program manager and being like, what do they need? Because he's like, nobody's been able to specify this directly to licensed program analysts. So I'd send in my stuff and then he'd be like, okay, specifically to licensed program. Um,
So you reached out to
so I
to
reached
the
out to him and I was like, what did they need? Because they're like, we've never been able to do anything specifically to LPAs. So I did everything. I researched LPAs and I did, because it's like they don't care what I know. They want to know something specific to them, right? And so it's just so important. And then when I came on, I'm like, and this is what they love too. I'm like, please educate me. When I came on, I was like, on this slide, please educate me. What do the LPAs need to know for this so that next time I can add it for your colleagues? Same thing the first time I was a marriage family therapist and I had my first transgender client, and they're like, hey, I want to do this. And I tried to pretend I knew everything. I was like, yep, yeah, I totally know. I totally know. Right. And then he came in the next day and I was like, Jackson, you're going to have to forgive me. I said, I didn't know. I said, please educate me. And he just started crying. He's like, thank you so much. And he brings me in like a pamphlet of papers, but it's like people appreciate that when you're just honest and authentic with them and you're learning with them, so it's humbling for people. So I don't know. It works for me. It's improved my emotional resilience. It's improved other people's resilience when you can that's why I love the title of your podcast. Like just keep it real with people because I can see right through it. I mean, I can feel it with my energy when people are inauthentic. And even, there's a couple positions coming up at UC Davis, for a director. And I'm like, I could never do it. And I know myself, I couldn't do it because I've been on meetings with director, and they're like, I see where you're coming from. And I see where you're coming from. I couldn't do that. I couldn't
Yeah.
do that. I'm like, no, I don't see where you're coming from, or I see where you're coming from. You either see where one person's coming from or the other, but I couldn't be one of those people that
Mhm.
are just like, yes, I see where everybody's coming from, and let me just smooth that. Like, I'm not one of those people. I can't be inauthentic, I can't, I,
But you know what, like my secret hope and wish for the world is let's stop trying to do this appeasing of everybody. Like I see where you're coming from and you're wrong, right?
right,
I see where you're coming from and that doesn't work for us anymore. So I need
right,
you to think of a different path. Like all of this, like PC, no, I'm not saying we're not kind and respectful to people. We need to be kind and respectful to people. But at the same time, like this extra level of politeness and I don't want to rock the boat, this what's the word I'm looking for? Artificial harmony of like everybody's getting along, like it's all fake and phony. And we all have the meetings after the meetings. We're like, yeah, they were full of crap. There,
yeah.
like let's
It's
stop
crippling to
high-fiving each
people.
other.
It's not
Yeah,
helping people to grow. And you can say
no,
to someone like, I see your perspective and I respectfully disagree. Right.
exactly,
And so I
exactly.
think even what's frustrating me in the world right now, if I'm going to keep it real, right, is
Keeping it real.
I see people posting, right? And it's like, okay, so you're posting, there's a difference between knowledge and wisdom.
Hmm.
Anybody has knowledge, but people with emotional resilience have wisdom, and there's a big difference. And so you can post knowledge. So I see a lot of people on either side, and they're just posting knowledge. And it's like, okay, I could Google that, right? I could Google a new law that's coming out. I can Google something, but what are you posting it for? What's the intention of what you're posting it for? Is it to create more fear? Is it to create more separation? Is it to create more division? Because I could Google that. So it's an illusion of control because you're trying to control something that's completely out of your control, where it's not, our power doesn't lie in control, our power lies in choice. So,
Hmm.
yes, you're posting that, but then what are you choosing to do that's going to actually be of benefit to yourself, the world, and people around you? So, for me, I don't choose to post something about like, I don't just post, hey, the opiate epidemic is our new crisis, for instance. What's my intention of posting that knowledge? To create more fear, to make people more depressed? What I choose to do instead is go out and train, because I choose to do that, on substance use in children and inspire people and give them hope and get more. Do you see what I'm saying? That actually has a direct positive impact on the world rather than just posting knowledge that's going to create fear and separation and division among people. So it's really frustrating to me when I look at people and I'm like, where's your emotional resilience? So you're just posting about stuff and getting people all worked up, but what are you choosing to do to help yourself and those around you to make a positive impact? Right. And then we'll talk about this, in a little bit later, but like you're saying, that toxic positivity, that's not resilience. Like it's fine, everything's fine. You're right, and you're right, and you're right, and you're right. What is that doing? That's not doing anything. So that resilience is actually looking at something with optimism, but realism at the same time and
Yeah,
making a positive outcome in the future. So
right.
I get really frustrated where I'm on those and I'm like, I'm doing this for my own personal growth and saying what I need to say. But I'm like, no, I don't agree with that. And this is where I'm coming from so that I can take the lesson, get a positive outcome for the future, for myself and who I'm trying to work for. So like I say, like I don't care. People are either gonna like what I have to say or not like but I'm gonna be in integrity with my values, one way or the other, you know?
I was
Yeah.
having at dinner with some colleagues from another place I teach the other night, and we were talking about the current state of what's going on in the world, and there were a couple questions that were supposed to direct the conversation, and one of them was, what are you committed to? And, you know, I know people who say, I'm committed to being at all the rallies and fighting and speaking up and marching. And I told him, I said, I'm committed and my focus is on the people who are affected by all of us who are talking and marching and making all of these, you know, proclamations. How are we following through with this? I'm committed to the impact we have on them. So the people that I train and that I have workshops with have a direct impact on people, whether it's training in the counties we have where we're working with people who are working with families and improving their communities, or in the state orgs that I train for, where a lot of them are senior leaders, where their actions and their connections with their staff create a cascading effect on
Yes.
people to the end users. And so that's what I'm committed to, right? I,
Yes.
yeah, I mean, I don't do a whole lot of posting about political stuff or social
No,
stuff.
me neither.
That's I do enough of that having conversations with folks in a room, right? Where we're talking about your next actions. Whether, and somebody said this yesterday, well, I just usually work on the budget in my department. I said, but you working on the budget affects the person who is receiving that information on what they can and cannot spend to help their clients, their patients. This is a direct action. If you work in payroll and you screw up a payroll cycle, how are those workers who are worried about paying their rent or their mortgage going to be at their best when they're working with families, right? These are things that it's important for us to pay attention to and recognize our impact, right? Knowledge is great. How are we applying this? How is this working? And I tell you, those people, and I talk about that, that idea of whether I understand. I was a social worker. You tell a client, I understand where you're coming from. No, you don't.
Mm-mm.
Have you ever been addicted? Have you ever been homeless? Have you ever slept on a couch? Have you ever had three kids who ask where my next meal is? No, I haven't.
Right.
I've slept in bunk beds with my daughter because, because shit got rough. But other than that, I can't equate my upbringing, my experience in life to who you are. I don't even care if we slept in the same shelter together, right? That is not the same experience that you had after that. So
Right.
who am I to put and for me, it's not polite. You all call it polite. I call it demeaning, degrading, and having privilege.
Yes.
And so when you put your privilege on other people, you're telling them that I this is how I feel and I understand because I know, and so that means I know more than you, which is bullshit. And
Mm-mm.
inherently, if we don't look at our folks that we're working with as subject matter experts in their life, we have failed already.
I agree 100%. I agree 100%. And they asked me to coach Carl some through UC Davis, some clients for this management development series.
Mhm.
And I said, I agree to coach, but I'm going to coach the way I want to coach, right? Because, I get on with them and I'm like, what are your strengths? And they say, Gallup strengths. And I said, I don't want to know about your corporate strengths. Like, what are your strengths? And the looks I get, and I say, what do you value? Do you know what your 5 to 6 values are? And they look at me and I take them through this values exercise, about like, if you don't know what you value, how are you going to set boundaries around that and protect it, you know? And so by the time I get off with these corporate, because it's corporate right now. Everyone is so wake up, rinse, repeat, robotic, not connected. If you can't lead yourself, how are you going to lead a team? How are you going to lead an organization? How are you going to lead? And so I have them all in tears because nobody's taken the time in these organizations to with themselves, and so they're like, oh my God, I didn't even know I value this. And so it's so conflicting when their values are rubbing against what they're needing to do. And like you said, everybody is individual. My experience isn't the same as Tiff's, isn't the same as yours, isn't the same. So they're an expert on their own lives. And once they know what they value and what their strengths are or areas of weakness, or areas of improvement, they can get back connected to self. And that right there, when we can get back connected to ourselves, then we can move in a forward direction with resilience. Then we can get there, because I'm not going to assume to know everything. Just because I do it a certain way doesn't mean it's the right way. Doesn't mean it's the right way, you know?
Yeah.
So,
But Tiff and I talk about that all the time, though, Kelly. It's something that, if you haven't really, you know, done a lot of it to be immersed in it, what people don't realize is that when you're in public service and in government service enough, there's this feeling like the further you go up in public service, the more you're supposed to know. You're just supposed to just have inherently, you're just
yes,
supposed to be absorbed, and
yes,
you're not allowed to say, I don't know this. Or if you do say, I don't know this, it affects other people's perception of who you are, which is,
yes,
we know that's defeat already,
yes,
right? And that's where we have a lot of challenges. People are afraid to come and ask people for help, and leaders are afraid or don't know how to ask for feedback. It's some of the hardest things. I don't assume anything. I've come up with, Tiff will tell you, the last 4 or 5 years, my motto, my operating motto is I don't assume shit.
yeah,
I don't assume that you know anything that I know, and I don't assume that I know anything you do. And I'm going to break down each term. I don't care if you have spent more time studying it than me. Guess what? You're going to hear me break it down, because there's somebody in this class who has not broke it down to that part. We're level setting, and then we can go from there. And so, if that is demeaning to you, there's somebody in that room who it's thank you for enlightening that, right? And to have that conversation and making me feel like I'm worthy, right? And so
yes.
that's such a huge thing.
That's all things resilience. That's
Yeah,
all
yeah.
things resilience. So, like, that's part of resilience is I love feedback. Feedback to me is gold, right? Even if you were to come up to me and say, "Hey, Kelly, that podcast was not what we were thinking," afterwards, I'd be like, "Hey, Carl, thank you for the feedback. Tell me more about that," right? And what you're talking about is we do so many unfavorable comparisons. Right. And so if someone came to me and was like, "Hey, Kelly, your training was great, but Tiffany's, was better," I wouldn't then go, "Oh, shoot," and compare myself to Tiffany. Emotional resilience would be me going to Tiffany and not going, "Mine was good, but Tiffany's was better." My emotional resilience would be my training was good and Tiffany's was better. So let me go to Tiffany and say, "Hey, Tiff, tell me about your training. Like, what made it so good? Give me some tips and tools." Right? Because people at the top are collaborating, people at the bottom are competing. And so part of that emotional resilience is that lifelong learning and finding mentorship and finding people. My favorite singer, Pink, says, "The reason I'm so successful is because I'm surrounded with people that are better than me."
Mhm.
Right? If you think you're the smartest person in the room, find a different room. If I start to feel stagnant in my career, if I'm starting to be like, oh, right, like whatever I'm specializing in, if for me it's addiction, 30 minutes a day, I'm looking up who's the number one expert in addiction right now. I'm looking up podcasts on addiction. I'm doing that, right? It's like, look, stand at the gate of your mind and don't let anybody walk in it with dirty footprints. So 30 minutes a day, what are you watching? I train people or I coach people with anxiety, and I'm like, "What are you doing?" "Well, I'm watching videos on anxiety." No, watch videos on what are the best tips for anxiety? What are some deep breathing exercises, right? And so take that feedback, go to people that you're hearing that maybe did a better training than you and ask them, ask for that feedback. But that's part of that resilience. So I think sometimes, my coach used to say, "What's the payoff that you're getting?" And I'm like, "What do you mean? I'm not getting payoff comparing myself to others or staying in my things." But I think you do get a payoff. You do get a payoff posting about things that are negative or comparing yourselves to others.
Yeah.
It keeps you stagnant. It can keep you in your addiction. It can keep you angry. It can keep you isolated from others. It can keep you not
Justifies your
taking
behavior.
risks,
Yeah, yeah,
whatever it does for you.
yeah.
And so, the new research says that 85 to 90% of people think that they are self-aware and they are not. And for me, I think it all starts with being self-aware of yourself and your behaviors. It's all emotional intelligence, being curious about how your behaviors and actions affect yourself and other people.
Mhm.
Get
Yeah.
curious about it, you know?
I think too, with that comes some accountability. And this is something that society, I think we avoid altogether because blame is so much easier. So in that self-awareness, like part of that self-awareness is recognizing, oh, I'm getting that wrong, you know? Like, oh, like I can tell you I had like this moment years ago where my now husband, my very cute husband, right, Kelly?
What socks is he wearing today, though?
No, I haven't seen his socks yet. He always wears cute socks. Probably we're in Mexico, so they're probably Corona socks, if I had to guess. I'll let you know right now when he walks
All
back
right.
in. Um, there was a moment where I was like done with him. I was like, this is just not for me. He's not giving me what I need. Like we're in this like spiral of like same behaviors over and over again, and he's just not the right one. And then I went to a training because I swear to you, like you say, the higher power comes when it comes. I believe that 100%.
Yes.
And I was tasked to go to this training for trainers to learn this curriculum on world-class relationships. And I remember sitting in that class, like making my breakup plan, right? How am I going to tell him to leave? What are we going to do with the dog? You know, let's figure this stuff out. And as we went through like these pillars of healthy relationships, I was like, oh shit, having a fucking problem, you know? So problem. Like it's not him, like it's me. And I started to see all of these like unhealthy behaviors. They're like healthy relationships, you don't do this. And I'm like, "I do that like every day, you know, and we don't do this. And I'm like, oh, that's like my go-to. So I, I was like, I went home with so much humility, like I was so done, but I realized that it's not you, it's me. And here's what I'm committed to do. And what are you committed to do? And like here we are now, I don't know, maybe ten years later, like living our best life. And a lot of it was just me being able to see and be accountable for what I was contributing, which is not something I was super familiar with. And now I really try to keep that as like a badge of honor in all parts of my life. I have to be accountable for like the energy I bring into relationships, into work, into classrooms, into podcasts. And I want to leave people with like a lingering sense of happiness and hope and joy in their life. And so I have to live my life in that way and be accountable for that. And
Yes.
so, you know, I can still be honest with people, trust and believe. My kids tell me I have a special gift for getting people all the way together. Uh, with the verbal bitch slap. But they're like, but I always feel good after you've verbally bitch slapped me around a little bit because you do it with such love. I actually can hear what you're saying.
That's it. And I love everything you said because that's all resilient. You guys are nailing everything resilience, right? Our internal world is a reflection of our outside world. So if we're judgmental of ourselves, we're going to be judgmental of others. If we're not loving ourselves, we're not going to love others. If we're not accountable here, we're not going to be accountable here. And I love what you said about blame because I'm going to go Brene Brown here for a second because
Do it, do it.
she's
We
my
love
person.
her. We love her.
Brene talks about blame is simply it's a discharge of discomfort and pain
Mhm.
when we're blaming others. And when we blame, what's happening is it disconnects vulnerability and authenticity. And it creates disconnection instead of connection. And so she was giving an example of her husband. Brene was talking about her husband. And she's like, so basically what happened is he knows I like to go to bed at 10 p.m. and he decided to go out with his friends. And so, of course, I'm awake waiting for him and he doesn't get home on time. So then I go to bed late and then I wake up in the morning and I'm tired making my coffee and I'm wearing white pants and then I spill my coffee. It gets all over my white pants. And then he comes and he's like, what's wrong with you? And then I'm ignoring him. So I'm blaming him for being up late and spilling the coffee and he's just ignoring me. And she's like, I chose to stay up late waiting for him. I'm rushing around in the morning, So she's like, I wasn't vulnerable. I didn't communicate it. I didn't take accountability. And so she's like, it was discomfort and pain on my part. So it's like everything with resilience starts with us. Every single thing. It's like, did it happen for me? Did it happen to me? Is it something, am I intrinsically motivated? And I'm the same as you, Tiffany. Like, my goal is to leave everybody's life better than when I found it. Whether it's smiling at someone on the street, whether it's a training, whether it's being on this podcast with you guys this morning, whatever it is, not that I'm not going to be honest and authentic when I do it, but I love talking about all this stuff because it's like, I don't care what happens in my day. I wish I had it in here. I have a 1 minute gratitude journal because I'm the queen of like, I don't have time. And at the end of my day, I can have the shittiest call, and I can write in my journal, I'm so glad that call happened for me so that I learned how to set a better boundary. Or I'm so glad that interaction happened for me so that I can better learn to use my voice. Everything happens for us if we can look at it as an opportunity, adversity even, not looking at it as a barrier to growth, but a bridge, a stepping stone to create a better outcome, a failure. Look at it as a bridge, not a barrier as to how can I do that better the next time? Because we're going to make mistakes. We're human. We're going to have something that frustrates us because we love so hard that then we can, look back and go, like I remember with my sponsor, I used to call her and I used to be like, and this person and blah, blah, and she would give it to me. And it would take me 4 days, 5 days. And then I'd call back and I'd be like, you're right. That's my bad. Now I can see it right away, but it took 10 years of being clean to be able to do it, but it always comes back to me. That's the fourth step in recovery. It's like, who are you resentful against? So I used to write these big lists, mom, dad, the world, and then it was like, what's your part? Where's your part in it? And what fear did you have? Oh, I had a fear of abandonment. I had a fear of this. I had a fear of being alone. I had a fear of, it always comes back to us if we look at it. Because if we're waiting on someone to shift or change, we're going to be waiting a really long time. So it's up to us to do the shifting and changing.
Well, and that's too where you have control. Like, I can't control what anybody else does. Zero. I can't control circumstances. I can't control someone else's choices. I can't control someone else's mood or behavior. Well, I have zero influence, authority of what anybody else does. But I can control how I choose to respond to that, or how I choose to process that, or how I choose to think about that. And I think for me, that was like the biggest like learning curve in life for me was I was very much the same. Like, everything happens to me. Didn't have perfect circumstances. My parents were addicts, like grew up really poor, didn't have like tons of opportunities. I could have, should have, would have done all of these things.
Yes.
And yet here I am, like living the life that I've always wanted or never could have dreamed of. Like, I never could have dreamed of the life I have right now. Never in a million years would I had sat down, 30 something years ago and said, when I grow up, I want to, I would have
Yes.
never imagined this. But every bad decision and good decision and bad decision and good decision has brought me here. And I've learned a little bit from every period of life. And trust me, I've gotten it wrong way more than I've gotten it right.
Yes.
And but each of those is like building the building blocks. And people will fail. And if you're not failing, that means you're not trying hard enough. So, like, you gotta take some more
Right.
risk. If you're not failing, you're probably, staying in the same place. But when you do fail, you can fall down, or you can fall up. And I'm always choosing to fall up. Like, I fell and I made a mistake, but what did I learn from it? And how can I do better next time? And part of it, and I haven't gone through any of the recovery steps, but I am very familiar with the making amends.
Yes.
So when I do fail and I fail other people, I also have to be brave enough to reach out and try to fix that. Like, they don't have to forgive me, but I can at least acknowledge, like, you know what, Kelly, I know you were really trying to help me last time. And I was really like not very loving to you, and you didn't deserve that, right?
Yes.
Like, and not let me make excuses for it, not let me tell you what I was going through and try to justify my bad behavior, but just to really own up to I just didn't do good for you, and you didn't deserve that. And I hope that someday you can forgive me.
And I
And
love
Kelly,
the way you said it because, and I'm sorry without change behavior is manipulation,
right.
right? You can hear, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. But if you don't change the behavior like you're talking about, that's manipulation. And I love what you talk about, Tiffany, because you talk about noticing the pattern is awareness, but
Mhm,
changing the behavior is the growth, like you're
mhm,
talking about. And you're talking about the vulnerability, which is what people have the difficulty with, is because vulnerability is the birthplace, like Brene talks about, of innovation and change. Because
mhm,
the vulnerability is like that is where your people have to take that risk because with vulnerability, it's going to open the door to connection and all these different things, but you have to risk being told no,
mhm.
being rejected, because that was the hard thing with my amends, I mean, who I am in my recovery and who I was in my addiction are two completely different stories. And we won't go there. That's a whole nother podcast in itself. We would have been in trouble, the three of us, if we would have known each other but anyway, but when I came to make my amends, some people didn't, and I had to be okay with that. I had to be like, hey, I had no right, because my sponsor's like, do not tell people you're sorry. That's not good enough. You say, I had no right, or I take accountability, and you need to have hands off the outcome that they might not be ready. And a lot of them were not. And
Mhm.
so I had to not keep saying, I'm sorry, but I had to, like my mom said, stop telling me, show me. And so I remember I would go over there like 5 years later and I'd be in my sunglasses and I'd be like, hi, mom. She's like, you don't have to keep showing me your eyes. Like, we know that we know that you're clean, but I would just keep showing her through my actions, that if she wanted me there at 5 a.m. to drive her and my dad to the airport, I was there at 5 a.m., so
Mhm.
I would just actions. And like you said, it's not one big step to the top of the stairwell, but it's like falling up
Mhm.
one step, one little step at a time, consistently being consistent.
And being understanding too that you may roll down a couple of steps every now and then, and you pick yourself back up and take what you learned and get right back up. Keep.
No, propel
That's life,
forward.
isn't it? Yeah,
Mhm.
Yes.
that's life. I mean, the model I like, the J curve, that's a real thing. I mean, we try something, we got to get better at it before and we got to learn it. So performance is going to suck for a minute or however long it's going to suck, and then it gets better. But we have to give ourselves grace for that as well, right? We
Yes.
have to be able to forgive ourselves before we can forgive other people. We have to be able to be willing to make mistakes before we can accept mistakes in other people. I always say mistakes lead to experience, experience leads to knowledge, and knowledge leads to wisdom, right?
Oof.
And so it's such a powerful thing. Somebody, I was teaching a bias class for the state water boards, and somebody asked me, says, "Is bias ever a good thing?" I said, "Well, it'll keep you safe. It'll keep you, you never have to worry about other people. You can always predict their behavior, even though it's going to be wrong a lot of the time. You can make all those assumptions you want, and so you never have to venture out and actually learn about other people. So it's going to keep you safe, but the people that you're impacting, it's not keeping them safe, right? So
Yes.
just having that understanding of who we are, recognizing in ourselves first is so important. Like you talked about, Kelly. I really tried to change my mindset from talking about what I don't have and what's frustrating to having those healthy boundaries, right? You can't respect anybody else's boundaries till you respect your own, right? And I was thinking, I mean, I work, I travel, I don't complain about my travel anymore. Tiff will tell you, we go all over the place. I say, I love going to different places. The hardest thing for me getting older is the travel there. But
Yes.
I know once I get there, I'm in my element. I'm in my space with my people, right? So I want to complain about that? No, what? I'm in two bands. We have practice every week. Do I want to complain about it? No, I chose this for myself. I
Yes.
chose my activities. Now, if it starts to affect the people that I love, how can I have that conversation with myself rather than, well, you just have to deal with it? No, what is it that is important to me? Is it something that is important enough for me to stand my ground, or is it important enough for me to say, you know what? this really is, what is it doing for me? Right. That's a conversation. I have people all around me. Well, I'm just so sick and tired of working. And then I got to do this and I got to come home and do this. And I was like, well, think about, you come home and work, you come home from work into this house or this family that you chose, that you wanted, that provides you joy and comfort. Work is the vehicle to that, right? So why are you complaining about it? I mean, what is the choice that you have other than, I mean, if things get too rough and it starts affecting things, then maybe I'll be in one band. Maybe I won't be in any bands. I get that ability to make that decision for myself and be okay with it, right? And so that is something where I didn't have that before. When we talk about, being accountable, like I mentioned, Tiff, both and I said we're accountable to other people. I'm trying to learn to be accountable for myself, right?
Yes.
And understand that the accountability that I have for myself affects other people, right? And so if I am more accountable to myself, I don't judge that level of accountability for other people. I just recognize where they are in that moment and what is it that I can count on from them and what I can't, and that's okay, right? But
Yes.
but it's so hard because that blame and shame, it's a neurological function of our ability to
It
try
is.
to stay safe. We have to trick
Yes.
our brains. We have to trick our brains to recognize what I'm feeling right now is comfort, but I need to get past that comfort, because when I get past that comfort, it helps other people feel comfortable. And so it's an intentional thought, that intentional curiosity, right? We're not curious by nature
No.
unless you don't have a survival, mechanism in your brain, which means there's some type of, traumatic brain injury that happened, right? So,
You do.
you know,
You're
yeah,
getting me so passionate about this because you brought up such great points. And so our brain doesn't know, our ego doesn't know the difference between real and perceived threat. And we're born with that negative feedback loop, right? So if there's a bear standing in front of Tiffany, right, that's a real fight, flight, or freeze, because that bear might be ready to bite her face off, right? And so that's the real fight, flight, or freeze, right? But if there's a change coming for Tiffany, right, her ego doesn't know the difference between, that's not a real threat, but she's going to go into that fight, flight, or freeze. So that's why we self-sabotage.
yeah,
Right. So if Tiffany's like, oh, I have an opportunity to go do something exciting or take a risk or get a promotion or, go coach a new person, right? Even though it's uncomfortable or uncertain or unknown, but it's going to lead to a more comfortable life, we're going to go back to what's comfortable or familiar because we know the outcome,
yeah,
even though it's going to lead to a more uncomfortable life of her not taking that risk, right? Because her ego to, so that resilience part of that is challenging those thinking errors, like you're talking about, challenging, but being aware, so that's the resilience part is we're going to have, and the research always changes, right? But 90 to 100,000 negative thoughts a day or thoughts a day, and 70 to 80 of those are negative. And so, when we're like, oh, I shouldn't do that, or oh, right, and challenging that thinking error and going, wait, right? I've been successful with these trainings. I'm qualified to coach this. Oh, I can go do this, right? But having that grace and compassion, and most importantly, that self-forgiveness. And I love what you said is that I'm going to go to Brene again, her braving, right? All of those things need to start with you. Boundaries, reliability, doing what you say you're going to do, accountability, right? Being your own personal vault, not checking with everybody else about your decisions. I used to check with my mother about going to the bathroom in the morning. I think I'm going to go to the bathroom before I get, oh, honey, yeah, that's a good idea, right? Oh my God, I'd check every decision with her and then it wouldn't work. And then I'd be like, Mom, you told me to do that. She'd be like, well, you should have made your own decision. When I'm my own personal vault and I'm like, I'm going to take a risk on this or not, whether I fail or not, it's my decision, right? Integrity is the I, being non-judgmental of yourself. Therefore, you're more compassionate with others and making generous assumptions about people, right? Oh, they didn't show up today. Instead of being like, oh, they're a flake or whatever. Maybe they had an emergency, right? Maybe they had this. But all of those things, and making generous assumptions about yourself, right? Oh, shoot, I was only able to do 6 clients instead of 7, instead of being like, I'm not good enough. Hey, but like you said, Carl, like all those things need to start with you. And those days where you're just like, oh, that travel was a lot. And then I had to come home and then I had all these responsibilities. Well, what am I choosing? We're the alchemists of our lives. At any point, I used to take Mondays and Fridays off. And then I started coaching those UC Davis clients on Mondays and Fridays. And by the end of the week, I'm like, I'm done, right? And I'm sitting there just beating my head against the wall for like 3 weeks. And I'm like, I own my own business. Like I can block off that Friday whenever I want to, right? And so I did. I chose to block off my Fridays. Hence why I'm on your podcast, right? So,
Welcome to the Friday Off Club.
right?
That's
But I'm
us.
like, doing nothing is a choice, right? Sitting there and spinning, like I tell my people in the trainings, they're like, right? And I'm like, you guys chose this profession for a reason. Doing nothing is a choice. Take another vehicle within your profession, right? Take a week off. Nobody is going to give you permission to take a self-care day, right? And now the new research says, because I'm going to get neuro geeky here for a second.
Anyway, we love neurogeeky.
If you do 10 minutes of mindfulness a day for 8 weeks consistently, it literally changes the gray matter in your brain of negative thinking to white matter, to positive thinking in your brain on PET scans. 10 minutes, right? And that can look like anything, right? In the morning, you just get quiet with your cup of coffee on the beach, right? Like you just, go put your feet in the, like press your face up to the sun. It doesn't need to be this like heavy Buddha on the rock kind of situation, but 10 minutes, right? And so there are so many things people can do, but they allow themselves to get this illusion of control, like, oh, my coworker, oh, this. It's like, that's where the boundary comes in. You don't have to be like all, oh, right, but good morning, and then remove your energy.
But we talk about this. We talk about that particular point so much because we talk about coaching and being a human service, helping professional, but also in leadership, right? And you see this in leaders who have this mindset of, because they've been raised in this and acculturated in this system of chain of command where I can't move until I get the okay from the person above me. But if you're so far up in the food chain and you have how many hundreds of people underneath you that are waiting for your decision, who are you impacting while waiting for this one person's decision? What can you do in the meantime without that person's decision that can affect all these other people?
Yes.
And it's almost like a freaking light goes off in people's heads who have been doing this for 20, 25. This is why I don't assume shit, right? Because people have not thought about the impact they have on other people, right? And
it's a ripple effect.
Yeah. And personality theory, I do Myers-Briggs certified and that, whatever, but just thinking about those folks, we talk about task focused folks, they get the job done. They focus on those things. Relationship focused folks work on connecting with people to get their job done better, right? And so there's pluses and minuses to both. The relationship folks, sometimes we work on relationships so much that maybe we don't always understand, getting the work done in a timely fashion to other people. And then the task focused folks sometimes focus so much on getting the work done, they don't understand the impact they have on other people. And the problem is 70% or 80% of promotions are based off of the tasks that you've done in your previous job. So if you're task focused and you've accomplished those things and you get promoted, what's the message that's being sent to you that you getting your work done is what's promoting you? People, if they're not getting their work done, whatever. And I think that's a culture that we have of this high performance, culture that people have where they think we have to focus on work, relationships. Do we have to deal with emotions? And this is all the stuff that we were I'm of the generation where you rub some dirt on it, suck it up, right? I played a baseball game on a broken ankle, right?
Yeah.
I've been there, right? And I've been applauded for it. Oh, you're so tough, right? And I wish I'd have had somebody like Harvard Business Review and the other research now that says, you know what, you don't have to play. It's okay. It's
No.
okay to take a break. That's not what I was taught.
Right.
Right. And so,
Me
and now
neither.
I walk around with limps. I got arthritis in my ankle. I got
Right.
a tendon that's pulled off of my bone. And I'm still trying to play tennis, and all these other things because I was suck it up. That's what my internal messages is telling me. And then,
Right.
what I'm saying is, you know what, it's okay not to play tennis
It's
because it
okay.
hurts when you serve,
Yes.
right? It's
I got
okay.
to subscribe and save to the BioFreeze, right? For
Yeah.
every type of situation. But that's our culture. And the culture should be, right? If our own cup's not filled, we're not going to be able to fill. And I don't mean to go rogue here, but I'm going to go rogue here for a minute. I mean, you knew it was going to happen at some point, but
I've
I
been
want
waiting
to
for it.
develop a training and I want to know if you guys are interested because, not that we're all not super busy and we got to get somebody back from Mexico to do it, but I want to do a
Back
three-part
today.
I want to do a three-part training and I've already been approved to do it if I want to do it. So I want to know if you guys would be interested. This is what I want to do. I want to do a three-part training. And the first part, because this is what I'm hearing and I want to know if you guys hear it too. When I do trainings with like the frontline workers, I always hear like our managers and supervisors need to take this training, not us.
Yeah.
You hear it? Okay.
All the
All
time.
the time.
Every time.
And especially I hear it in my resilience training because I want you guys to do this with me. So what I would like to do is a three-parter. And the first part, we have our frontline workers in there and we hear everything that they need to say, right? Whatever complaints they have, whatever they're feeling, the issue is. Then the second one, we have all the supervisor, the high level, the managers, the deputy directors, whatever, whatever. And we let them know what is going on from the frontline workers. And we hear what they have to say. And then the third one, we bring them all together and we get a solution to it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because I think that would be really like with the three of us, with all of our knowledge and with what we're talking about today, I think that could get the communication. Because what I'm finding is that you've got the frontline workers that are feeling a certain way and they're burnt out. And then you've got the middle management that's getting it from the chiefs and the deputy directors, and they're getting it from the frontline workers and they're feeling kind of, like you said, frozen. And then you've got the deputy directors and everything else that are worried about budget and, whatever. So I want to get them all aligned with like, what are your values? Like what do you value? Where is everybody accountable? How can we get everybody communicating? Because I'm hearing it statewide, like wherever I go. It's not just like a one county type of situation. What are your guys' thoughts on that?
I love it. And I can tell you the challenges every time I have an all staff or I have a class where just the line staff supervisor or their program director's in the room, everybody's quiet. And I have multiple people on Zoom say, hey, could you not put me in the breakout room with this person? They're my
Right,
supervisor. There's
right.
so these three sessions, I would say might be 2-day, 3-day sessions
Yes,
where we can build up that idea of psychological safety. Gallup just
yes,
released a survey that said 25% of people straight out lie in engagement surveys for fear of retribution.
yes,
They don't want they think, anonymous surveys always come back to me. All right, people always know who's filling out the anonymous surveys. And I see it. I see when I do 360s with senior leaders. Oh yeah, well, I know that staff. I know who that person is that's marking me that way.
yes,
Right. So that comes back, especially if you're not self-assured, if you don't have that feeling of feedback as a gift, it can be something where people can have that held against them. And we see that in society, right? I mean, I have family members that, are not going to speak up and not going to fight the good fight because I have a job and I have to pay a mortgage. And I know historically you might have this idea of we can make this change. And I know that if I stick my neck out too far, it's going to get chopped off because that's what's happened to my people, to my culture, to my race.
yes.
This level of it's unhealthy fear of other people and these assumptions that this is going to happen, and it's all because of our survival instinct, and it's
It
such
is.
so it's got to be something where we breathe that idea of psychological safety. And I would love to work it through with you, and I would say start from the top down and have that conversation. We did a culture change at a bank I used to work with, and we took all the executives and senior vice presidents and put them through 4 days of self-examination,
Mm,
and to the point where and they were secluded in a hotel without any other contact from anybody else. They were in their rooms, in the meeting spaces, and in dinner and meals.
mm.
That's it. And one of the things was, like on the third day, after we'd really done a lot of self-examination, they called home and said, what is it that I'm missing?
Yes.
Which was one of the most powerful things. I mean, to be able to allow other people to trust that this is going to work, especially in government service, everyone says, are they supporting it? And if we can look people in the eye and say, not only are they supporting it, they've already been through it, maybe that's a way to crack the door open.
I love it.
Mhm. Yeah. What do you think, Tiff?
Yeah.
I- So like the image that came to my mind is like the Spider-Man meme where they're all standing pointing at each other. I don't know if
Yes.
you've seen it.
Yeah.
That's the problem. The problem is them, the problem is them, the problem is them, and everybody's pointing at each other.
Right.
Nobody's like looking at and I'm not saying top leadership doesn't have a challenge. And I'm not saying that supervisors don't have a challenge and that line staff don't have a challenge. But again, it goes back to that idea of blame of whose fault is it?
Yep.
Whose fault is it? And everybody, again, going back to generosity, I think everybody's doing the best they can with what they have. They all
Yep.
just have a very different perspective. And so I think opening up the lines of communication would be incredibly helpful. And it can't be performative. Like that's like my number one thing. Because here's what I see. Um, I'll give you in a county far, far away.
Yep.
I did a training. I did a customer service training. And the goal of the customer service training was because this county had been remote for a while, they were all coming back to the office, and the management wanted them to have a little refresher about like reconnecting with the public and reconnecting with each other and like creating this environment of service, like not just to the customers, but to each other and so on and so forth. So I already had training developed. It was perfect. And every day I went, because we did several sessions over and over and over again, a manager would come in and open and read a little spiel that they had written together to say, we brought this training, here's the purpose of it, we're all supporting this, we've all got together and decided we want to change, how we move forward and blah, blah, blah. And they said their thing, they sat there for a little bit and they walked out. And after, talking with people, they were like, this is a great training and all, but it's all bullshit. What they say and what they're promoting is not what happens here. And like people were just really resigned to great training. I had a good time, good use of 3 hours, and it's business as usual as soon as I get back to my desk. Because, we have unrealistic expectations on our work. You know, um, they want us to provide customer service, but we just got to do it in 12 minutes or less because of the call volume. Like the buy-in has to not just be a canned speech before a training, but like a real momentum shift. And it's part of, again, the apologies. I can't tell you, I'm so sorry that things aren't working. I'm sorry you're overworked and underappreciated, but let's do this 3 hour training and things will change if it's just going to go right back to the status quo. And
Agree.
so there has to be and I think that's one of the reasons, by the way, with survey, like one of the challenges with surveys and why people don't tell the truth, or maybe they just do the survey but really aren't invested in it. Because you did the survey, great. What's different?
Right. What's changed?
What's changed? I just gave you, I was super vulnerable. I told you the truth. I told you I don't feel connected to my job. I'm telling you I don't have support. I'm telling you I don't feel appreciated. And you're like, great, here's a pizza party from Costco, you know?
I agree with you. And I think that's what I want to go over with you guys. I want to get them I want to get them connected back to themselves. So I want to take what Carl said and I want to take what you said. The psychological safety is going to be really important, that there'll be no punitive. And I want to take them each through my values exercise. And so maybe you and I can meet about that. All of us can meet about that. But the values exercise, I think why that's important is because if the higher ups know what they value, it's also important for them to know what their supervisors value, right? Because for instance, if Tiff's the chief, right, and her main value is communication, right, and then I'm underneath her as her supervisor, and my main value is, integrity, right? That's going to be important to know, because if she's my chief, she's going to want to come and communicate with me about that. And if I'm out of my integrity, right, like that's important for people to know. And so I really want to take them. I want it to be more like less like Tiff said, performative and more about like, let's get to know that, and that's all in my resilience stuff too. I want it to be kind of more of resilience training, like, okay, everything's happening for you guys, not to you. Number one, let's not blame because that creates disconnection and not connection. Let's get you guys all into your values because, like, I have a pyramid of why we don't hit our goals because we're doing it upside down. So, like, you need to know what you value. Then, what do you want? Right? Like, oh, I want, better communication with my chief, or I want, to work on my self-care, or I want whatever. And then that leads to why. And then I go 7 layers deep on that why. And that's what gets everybody in their feels, right? Because they're like, oh, I'm stuck. And I'm like, no, you're not stuck. But like Carl Jung says, until you bring that unconscious to the conscious and deal with it, you're just going to call your life fate, right? This is how it's going to be, and this is how we're going to feel. And so, say they say, well, I want better communication with, or I want to be a better leader. Why? I'm feeling overwhelmed. Why? Because, we're understaffed. Why? Well, it's making me feel anxious. Why? Because this is how I felt as a kid when I got yelled at, right? Like it gets deep into that. And then they know. So it makes them number one, self-aware of what they want and why and then it always connects to them values. Right. So then they're in alignment. Everyone is in alignment. Right. And so when we bring them together, the chiefs will be like, oh, I see why I've been so blocked off. Right. I'm not in my values. And then the frontline staff can be like, oh, shit, me neither. That's why I've been afraid to communicate with you based on old fears. The point is, I want them to be factually responding based on present truth and not emotionally reacting based on old habits or old trauma.
Yeah. Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Down.
Yeah,
Fridays were good for me,
absolutely.
Kelly. We're all the Friday off club. Let's do it. I'm down for it.
Yeah.
I like one of the things I really strive for in training. I do a lot of like emerging leadership and oh, so you want to be a leader or you're like stepping into the skill set. Like one of the things that I like is valuable for me, and I always try to be real transparent with I really try to be transparent with like what my goal is as your instructor. And one of the things that I always start with is I'm trying to break the cycle of trauma of leadership. Like
Yes.
all of just break the cycle. And then I ask people to like think back and reflect on the impact they've had. If they've had really great leaders, how did that impact them? If they've had not great leaders, how has that impacted them? And a lot of times when people are moving into this leadership, like Carl was mentioning, you're really good at the technical skills, and so we promote you. But being good at the job isn't going to make you a good leader. And so, like, I can be completely fluent in how to build the car, but being good at building cars isn't going to make me a good manager,
Right.
right? And so it's a new skill set. And I always ask people to not just reflect on what is today, like, how are you being led today? But what does the future look like? And how do we, again, break that cycle of trauma in how we lead people? Because I see way too often, I can't even say that I'm not guilty of this as well, is like the things that we complain about from that entry level front end staff about our leaders, we complain about it and then we get promoted and do exactly the same thing.
Yes.
And so that's like the cycle I want people to break. And so I really try to be very open and upfront with, again, my perspective. And this is where I'm coming from. Let's look at what the future of leadership looks like and not base it on all of the things that we've been doing. The things that work, let's keep doing them. The things that are not working, let's try something different. And we might get it wrong. We might get it wrong. Guess what? We also might get it right.
That's
So what
right.
do we have to lose? Like, what do we have to
What
lose?
do
It
we have
can't
to
get any
lose?
worse.
And
It can't.
that's such a great point that you just brought up because I was coaching one of the UC Davis people and she was talking about her manager that was just she was so frustrated with, and then she met with her chief and she was felt really defeated, and she's like, now I have empathy for my manager because my manager probably didn't start that way. My manager probably started like me, but because she's had all of these years, she turned into, like you're talking about, the things we complain about with the trauma. Now she's turned into that because it's just habitual. And so I think you're talking about, which I love, the future. The future innovation? How do we like you said, fail forward. Because to me, like I talk about, and I got this in one of my evaluations when I just did the one in Shasta. And I'm going back because I did their frontline, then I just did their supervisors for resilience, and I'm going back to do their high ups next week. And what I loved about my evaluation was it said, I loved how she didn't focus on roles. She just focused on, we didn't have to be in our role for the day. We just got to be human beings, right? Because I'm like, you guys are human beings, you're not human doings, right? So
Right.
who do you want to be, you know?
Right.
And so leadership to me is not a role, a task, or a title. It's like, how do you communicate? What's your integrity? What's your vision? What is,
Mm-hmm.
you know, so I talk about that in my resilience, and I talked about that in my keynote. I'm like, from a very young age, we're talked about like, well, what do you want to do when you grow up? Do you want to, you know, firefighter, this? It's like, no, who do you want to be? Do you want to be a good
Mm-hmm.
person? Do you want to be a good communicator? Yes, your role is a supervisor, but it requires you to be a good communicator. You know, your role might be a chief, but it requires you to be in your integrity, you know? So like I want to focus more on, like you say, how do we move forward and talk about more of what do you want to be rather than what you're doing all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because that's so important. I always go back to what I raised my daughter on. I was single dad, raised my daughter since she was 5 years old, right? And so one of the things there was four things I told her that I needed her to do from a very young age. I said, I need you to do your chores, right?
Yes.
I I need you to try your best in school. I didn't tell her to get good grades. She has learning disability. She had an IEP all the way from kindergarten on. So I need you to try your best at school. I need you to be respectful when you're communicating with adults. And I need you to want to be a good person, to do your best to be a
Yes.
good
Be a
person.
good
What does it
person.
mean, to be thoughtful of other people and think about how you are landing on other people? And that's all I've ever told her. And,
Yes.
and so, I mean, I'm so proud of the person that she's become. And, but it was never about, well, you need to be, rise up the corporate ladder. You need to get straight A's, right? Those are all byproducts
Yes.
of anxiety and fear, right?
Yes.
And who is it that you want to be? Like you said, if you're in a position of influence, why am I here? What role do I have to play? What examples do I have? You talk about imposter syndrome. I have a lot of people I've coached who are in positions of influence in agencies that are women or people of color, particularly women of color. I've heard a few of them have come out with the idea of imposter syndrome without even me acknowledging it. Right.
Yes.
And so why? Well, when you get to a higher echelon, who's there that you can, or who has been there that you can
Right.
use as an example?
Right.
Right? Who and if there is somebody who or people that have been through, what is the trauma that they've been through to
Yes.
get through? He's like my dad always says, you got to be twice as good as the next person. Well, my dad was black growing up in San Francisco in the 60s, right? So he dealt with that level of overt racism that we're kind of seeing now. But I didn't
Yes.
necessarily have to
Systemic
deal with that.
racism. Yes.
Right. So it's a kind of a conversation. I tell my dad, I said, well, I don't really teach that to my daughter. Well, she's got to be twice as good. I said, well, I don't teach that to her because to have to be twice as good, that means that, that leads to a lot of fear and anxiety and just the feeling of failure. Why can't she be the best person she can be and be happy where she's going to be?
That's right.
And which
Because
is not what he was taught.
that's where
Yeah.
the stress and overwhelm comes from
Yeah.
is it's the barrier between where you are and where you think you should be.
Yeah.
Right. So if you're teaching her go up the corporate ladder and do that, that's going to cause that stress and overwhelm about where she is and where she thinks she should be. Right. And I always say, stop shooting all over yourself.
Yeah.
Right. Like
No
you're right
shedding.
here, right
Yeah.
now. But your dad had, and that's the thing with resilience. We all have, and that's why I don't assume, like you say, because we've all been raised with different ideas of what resilience is. For your dad, and this is what I hear from men of color, or this, it's like pull yourself up by your bootstraps, right? That's the definition of resilience. Other people is like, get up and dust yourself off. And that's why I have just a really neutral definition of that, which is, you have an event, you extract a lesson from it, and you improve that outcome in the future. But from your dad, you know, you look at generations growing up as a Black man in the 60s, absolutely. He's facing systemic racism and he had to really think ahead of like what he needed to do to survive, you know? So we all have, and that's why I love it when Tiff and I do the training on domestic violence. We talk about all those biases, you know, and racial biases and assumptions. And I always say, you can be that person in your race that has that stereotype of your socioeconomic class or your religion or whatever it is, or you can be that person like you are, Carl, that is just like, I'm going to be that person in my race that has that positive influence. And it takes a lot less energy. You know, like I talk about just going in and just being like, okay, I go up to people of color and I try to, now, am I going to pretend to know everything about you and your dad and the systemic racism? No, that would just be ignorant. You know, are you going to pretend to know everything about me and my history? And no, that would just be ignorant. But us being on this podcast has opened the door for us to have a connection and impact the world in a positive way. Yeah. And it took a lot less energy, you know? And can I learn and be educated by you? 100%. And can you learn and be educated by me? 100%.
But
You know?
it's that fear. It's that fear. I mean, I ask people all the time. I said, how many people that you know in your life and in your profession that are trying to do bad? How many evil people do you know in your existence? And most people will say, well, not that many. I said, okay, so we can assume, so we can make the assumption that most people that you interact with are trying their best. The vast
Yes.
majority of people are trying their best to live their lives in a productive and meaningful way, right?
Yes.
And so, you know, that's the conversation I've had with people. What can we do about these people? They voted differently than me. Why did they vote differently? Are they evil? Well, no, I don't. Okay, well, if they're not evil, then why are we projecting negative, you know, values and whatnot on them? Can we assume that there was a reason and that maybe that reason was misinformation, right? As
Yes.
opposed to, I just don't want to be like you and I'm going against you. If we have that assumption, we're never going to connect,
Ever.
right? And this is coming from somebody who's been taught to have a healthy awareness that not everybody who is in authority has your best interest in mind, right?
Yes.
But it's something that's intentional, right? Most people are intending to do things in a positive way. Their impact does not always match their intention, right? But if we treat, it's just like what Tiffany will tell you, we deal with workers all the time. And I've dealt with workers when I was working that, oh, you got to be careful. This client might be taking advantage of you. What's the percentage of clients that are trying to take advantage of the welfare system? 5%, maybe
Yep.
10% at the most. So that means the other 90% are suffering from the projection that you've put on them that they are trying to get over, which means
Yes.
that you're not providing them the level of service that will help them to see that we are to be trusted and valued and that we value and trust them. And
Yes.
so it's such a hard thing because people don't want to get burned. They're afraid that's a failure, right? Oh, I should have known better. And it's not about that. It's about,
No.
making that assumption of positive. If there's one assumption I'm going to make is that you have your best intentions until you
Yes.
prove me differently. And then I know how to move, right?
And that goes back to what Tiff was saying though, of breaking that cycle of trauma, right?
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
it's the trust issues, it's the attachment issues, it's all of those issues. And you're absolutely right. Because we see it on the DV, you know, when we talk about, oh, they're coming in for their benefits every year on the year. And I'm like, I would rather have 3 people coming in, taking advantage of the system to help that one person or that really needs that DV help, right? And that's what we talk about, those generous assumptions. And
But
then and
Kelly, you hear that. You hear that. It just in DV. Well, why
all
did
the
they stay?
time.
If my husband treated me like that, I'd be out the door. They'd have something cut off.
Yes,
Have you been in that situation? Do you understand? Oh, well, addiction's a choice, right? You know, and they
right.
make their choice. I mean, you hear these things all the time,
All the
and
time.
yeah, yeah,
I
and
was one
it,
of those persons for DV, right? I was like, if anyone
sure,
ever puts their hands on me, and then it happened to me. And
yeah,
I always laugh about that, right? Because I'm one of those people that like every time I've judged, this is a great way to end it because I'm going to be all vulnerable and accountable here. Every time I've judged something, it's happened to me, right? When I lived in San Francisco and I was a teenager, I was like, look at those homeless people under the bridge. Homeless. Then I was like, bisexual, pick one. You can't have your cake and eat it too. bisexual. Then the if anyone ever puts their hands on me, I'm out of there. Happened, right? And so every time I have judged something, right, it's happened. And so I just want to say with this trauma thing, like you have such a great point with the voting. I can also say, like, I've had friends that, that have gotten in, they ended friendships after 17 years. And I'm like, I could love Tiffany with all my heart, which I do, right? And I'm sure the more we get to know each other, there'll be little things, idiosyncrasies about Tiffany that I'm like, oh, right? And there'll be idiosyncrasies about me that Tiffany will be like, oh, same thing with voting. When people vote for someone, they can vote for someone and not love everything about that person that they voted for, right? You don't have to agree with everything. So I don't laugh about it, right? But people, like you say, when we're born with that negative feedback loop, it's like you can do 99 things right in a day, but you're going to focus on that one thing you did wrong. And that is why resilience is so flippin' important, to catch your thinking errors and go, how important is this going to matter in a year? Is this going to matter in 5 years? Right? And that is why we create more stress and overwhelm for ourselves when we can choose differently, right? And make decisions that our future self is going to thank us for. Make decisions for yourself that your future self is going to thank you for, right? Because nobody's going to give you permission to take care of yourself. And slow down and just be self-aware of what you're doing to create the life for yourself that you desire. Are your decisions and actions matching the life that you're desiring? Right? I know it sounds simple. It took me a long time, but holy cow, right? Like we can do so much for ourselves through just power of choice and mindfulness and awareness. And just one more thing. Resilience is not a skill. It's a mindset and it's a choice. Okay, now I'm done.
Well, what you just said right there made me think of the James Clear's book, Atomic Habits.
Yes.
And, one of the things that he said that was so profound to me was like, decide who you want to be, right? What kind of person you want to be. And then all you have to do is choose to be that person more than not. And so if you're saying, I want to be known as a person who's kind and generous, then you choose to be kind and generous more often than you choose to not be kind and generous. Every vote, every choice that you make is a vote for who you want to be. And I think that that's liberating. And part of this resiliency is that it doesn't have to be perfection. And if you're looking for perfection, you're going to be disappointed except for all the time. Right.
Yes.
And so like choose your battles and choose your wins. You can get something wrong and still count it as a win if you learn something from it. You can, again, make a friend and the friendship doesn't work out, but guess what? You took a risk and you put yourself out there and you learn something from that. Every choice that you make, it could go right, it could go the other direction, but you get to choose, that. And I think that that's very comforting,
Yes.
right? That's
Yes.
very comforting because
It's liberating. It's liberating.
That's
Yeah.
the freedom. That
Yeah.
is the freedom. Instead of giving your power away to all the
Right.
things that you can't control, you're stepping into your power and making all your choices. And maybe it's not about becoming, right? But it's unbecoming all the things that you weren't meant to be in the first place, because you're getting rid of all those layers of programming. And then you get to program yourself any way you want to be. And are your actions and behaviors aligning with being kind, right? Just checking yourself every day. And that's the freedom of resilience, right? That's finding your inner freedom. Go ahead,
So
Carl.
Kelly, so we thank you so much for being here. We love
Oh, I
having you
loved
here.
every second.
And I mean, it went by so quick.
Yes,
And
it
we
did.
2 hours fast. I told you.
and we end our podcast. Usually Tiff ends with some tips, hot tips, right?
Tips.
So we're just wait, if you have 2 or 3, 4 tips for helping to be more resilient. If you
Kelly
had a
hot
thought of
tips.
bottling that in there. So, yeah, Kelly's hot tips or whatever you want to call them, Kelly's smellies, whatever you want to call them, right? So, right. So
Kellyisms.
what are
And some
Kellyisms? All right.
Kellyisms.
Okay,
I have a
cool.
couple of quotes that I want to say, and two of them that really are powerful for me is, in order to love who you are, you can't hate the experiences that shaped you,
Love that.
right? Um, and what I just love that, because that's part of resilience too, because we only show people the parts of ourselves that we want others to see, especially in management and things like that. So in order to love who you are, embrace all of you, right? Embrace all the parts of you, and that's going to lead to more authenticity. The other thing I want to say is you can't shame yourself into change. You can only love yourself into evolution. And so when you're doing this process of resilience, like Tiff said, you're going to make mistakes, you're going to hit bumps in the road, and that's all part of the process. So fall up. You can't shame yourself into changing. Just love yourself while you're doing your evolution. And so those are kind of the two tips that I'm going to leave you with in terms of resilience. Just embrace all of you, right? Because your story, when, like Carl was saying, when you allow yourself to be authentic and you share all the parts of you, not just the parts that you want the world to see, it gives permission for others to do the same. And you share your vulnerability and authenticity with the world, and it's such a great gift. So get rid of your garden of old thoughts and behaviors, right? Pull it up by the roots and just allow yourself to plant a new garden of whatever you want, because you're the alchemist of your life. And that's what I'm going to leave you with.
Oh, love Kelly so much. Didn't I tell you, Carl? Didn't I tell you? I told
And
him.
the third thing is I'm going to be swimming in that water behind Tiffany, even though she doesn't know it, when I hit up Mexico.
Come,
There
come.
you go.
We'll make some dates. We'll make some
I'll
dates. I
never
will
come
take
back.
you.
I'll never come back.
Trust me, it gets harder every time.
So Kelly,
It gets harder.
do you have anything you want to promote? Any websites, any engagements, books? Let us know.
Yeah, no, I
Yeah.
mean, my website is pretty easy. It's www.kellybazzani.com. And my book is on my website, The Change, Me and Les Brown, just kind of chilling. And so you can purchase it on there if you're interested. Um, and other than that, I'm just developing an adolescent coaching program right now with my colleague Misty Kerrigan, who is also a trainer for UC Davis.
Love
And
Misty.
yeah, she's pretty cool,
Yeah.
pretty awesome. And then we'll be developing ours, so stay tuned for that one.
And can I
Very
tell you,
cool.
Kelly, that you inspired me to become a published author this year?
Oh, I'm
Uh,
so proud of you.
yes, I've been writing. I've been writing, which is the first step. And so I'm challenging myself to get published this year. And it may just be I publish it my damn self, but
That's the
I
best
will
way
be
to
a
go,
published
actually.
author. Yeah,
Yeah.
I will be published author by the end of this year. That's what I'm committing to. And that was because you inspired me, because you're a published author. And I said, I want to be like Kelly. I
Yes.
want to be like Kelly. So
I
we're
will
doing it.
support you every step of the way, whatever I can do to support you. I'm here for it.
Love it.
So
Thank you,
proud of
Kelly.
you.
Proud of you. And I'm so happy you spent this time with us. You are amazing and wonderful. And I love you more than I did yesterday, which was pretty impossible. But here we
Oh
are.
my gosh. Well, I love you more, so I beat you.
Sorry, Carl. Oh, Carl's here. Sorry.
Oh,
Sorry. Oh,
Carl, we
all
love
right,
you
too.
too, Carl.
I'm in a love sandwich. What am I supposed to do? So,
Yes, yes,
just
you
enjoy
are.
it. Yes. So thank you. Thank you, Kelly. Thank you, Tiff, as usual. Thank you everyone for listening. And we really appreciate it. And we hope to have Kelly back sometime to have a
Anytime.
conversation, and look for us to have, more interviews just like this, as we move forward in our podcast. So um we at to wrap up, I'm Carl,
I'm Tiff.
I'm Kelly.
We're going to
and
keep it
we
real.
keep it real,
Keeping it real. Yes.
always keeping it real. In a love sandwich.
And love sandwich.